Hey there, welcome to Sci-Fi Dimension. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications to join us on new adventures. If you're ready, let's dive in.
The vending unit hissed like it was plotting murder. Jonas crouched in front of the machine, wrench in one hand, coffee-stained rag in the other, staring at its glowing display as though it were a personal enemy. The display blinked error. Liquid DISPNSAL malfunction, which was the same message it had shown him for 3 days straight. "You're not malfunctioning," he muttered. "You're just cruel." He gave the machine a firm smack, which resulted in a splutter, a dribble of lukewarm sludge, and a cloud of acrid steam that smelled vaguely like burnt socks. Jonas sat back on his heels, glaring at it. "Fine, be that way. No one loves you. I'll tell the recycling bots to melt you down into spoons." The hangar around him was quiet except for the occasional groan of stressed metal and the hiss of old oxygen recyclers. Orbital Station 23A, affectionately called Rust Bucket by anyone unlucky enough to pass through, wasn't exactly a hub of galactic activity. It was the sort of place where ships came to die and people came to disappear. Jonas had been both kinds of wreck at one point or another, which made him perfectly suited to work here. He tossed the rag over his shoulder and stood, stretching until his back popped. A line of derelict ships filled the docking bay, most of them missing engines, wings, or dignity. His toolbox was scattered across the deck, its contents arranged in what he optimistically called organized chaos. Somewhere, deep in the guts of the station, the power grid thumped like a dying heartbeat. And then came the sound. It wasn't the usual groan of hull plates or the whine of an overworked generator. This was softer, like fabric brushing against fabric, paired with faint footsteps. Jonas froze because nobody ever came into Bay 7 without making an appointment, and people who skipped appointments usually wanted him dead, or worse, wanted a discount. He turned. 5 figures stood at the entrance, silhouetted by the hangar's overhead lights. At first glance, they looked human, tall, slender, wrapped in travel-worn cloaks, but as they stepped closer, the differences became clear. Their ears were long, graceful, tapering into delicate points that twitched slightly, like they were listening to something beyond human hearing. Their eyes glimmered faintly, not in the creepy glow-in-the-dark way of cheap cybernetic implants, but in a natural, luminous way that made Jonas feel like a moth staring at stars. For a second, he thought maybe the vending machine fumes had finally driven him insane. The one at the front lowered her hood, revealing dark hair braided into a crown that framed a face both beautiful and unsettlingly serious. She took a step forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried the calm resonance of someone used to being obeyed. "We need your help." Jonas blinked. "Right, and you're what, selling subscriptions? Because if this is about extended warranties, I'll warn you now. I barely keep myself running, never mind anything else." The woman tilted her head, her ears flicking ever so slightly. "Our people are stranded. Our ships are failing. We were told you can fix things." Jonas laughed because that was easier than believing. "Fix things? Lady, I can barely fix my breakfast without setting off a fire alarm. You've got the wrong guy." Behind her, one of the other women stepped forward. She reached down, hooked her fingers beneath a heavy steel crate by the wall. One Jonas had nearly thrown his back out trying to move last week, and lifted it as casually as someone picking up a pillow. She set it down again with a soft asterisk thunk. Jonas swallowed. "Okay. You're not selling subscriptions, that's good. I hate paperwork." The leader's lips curved, just faintly, into something that might have been amusement. "Will you hear us out?" Jonas rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly aware of how filthy his coveralls were compared to their elegant cloaks. "Look, I don't usually get involved in galactic damsel-in-distress scenarios. Last time I did, it ended with me locked in a maintenance shaft for 12 hours and smelling like coolant for a week." One of them, shorter, with pale hair and the brightest green eyes he'd ever seen, snorted. "Maybe that was your fault." "Hey," Jonas said, pointing his wrench at her. "Don't mock a man's trauma. Coolant never comes out no matter how many showers you take. A ripple of laughter passed through the group, lightening the tension like someone had opened a window in a stale room. Even the leader's eyes softened. Jonas sighed. He had a rule. The moment strangers started laughing at his expense, it usually meant his life was about to get complicated. "All right," he said, dropping the wrench back into his toolbox with a clatter. "Tell me your story, but if it involves space zombies, cursed relics, or unpaid bar tabs, I'm out." The leader nodded gravely. "It involves none of those things." "Good," Jonas said, "because I already have 2 out of 3 on my record and I'm not saying which." They moved deeper into the hangar, their cloaks brushing the deck, ears twitching faintly at the station's creaks and groans. Jonas followed, muttering under his breath, "Why do I get the feeling my coffee machine was the least of my problems today?" No one answered, but the glow in their eyes seemed to hold both desperation and the faintest spark of hope. And Jonas, against every shred of common sense, felt something shift in the quiet corners of his chest. It was the beginning of trouble. The good kind, or so he tried to convince himself. Jonas had never been much of a listener. Listening usually meant commitment, and commitment usually meant disaster. But as he sat on an overturned crate in Bay 7 with 5 long-eared strangers staring at him like he was the universe's last sandwich, he figured maybe this time he'd better shut up. Kalira, the serious one with the crown braid, took the lead. Her voice was steady, but there was a weight in it that pressed at Jonas's chest. "Our world was lost. A plague consumed the stars near our system. It is called the null bloom. It feeds on energy, on light itself. We escaped, but our ships were not built for this place. Our engines are failing, and we have no one left who can repair them." Jonas whistled low. "Null bloom, huh? Sounds like a goth rock band I almost joined back on Titan. Didn't work out. They said I had no rhythm." One of the women, the pale-haired one who'd mocked him earlier, laughed before covering her mouth. Kalira, however, didn't so much as blink. "It has destroyed entire suns. It will come here too, eventually. We are only the first to flee." Jonas rubbed his chin. "Right. So you're saying there's some kind of cosmic fungus out there slurping up star juice like it's happy hour. And you think I can stop it by tightening a few bolts?" "We think," Kalira said, "that your skill with broken things is rare. Our ships are alive, but they do not understand your tools. We cannot fix them. Perhaps you can." Jonas looked around Bay 7. Rusting hulls, busted thrusters, the coffee machine plotting its next act of sabotage. He was not the galaxy's hero type. He was the guy who once repaired a plasma rifle with duct tape and a spoon, and then nearly blew his own foot off. But the way they were all looking at him, it was the kind of look a drowning person gave to a floating piece of wood. He scratched at a grease stain on his coveralls. "Okay, I'll bite. What do your ships run on? Because if it's diesel, I'm out." That earned him a ripple of laughter again, softer this time, like they wanted to laugh more than they dared. Kalira gestured and the others shifted, revealing a small crystalline sphere. It glowed faintly, humming in a way that tickled Jonas's bones. "This is the heart of our engine," she said. "It sings when healthy. It is silent now." Jonas leaned forward, squinting. "Looks like a fancy Christmas ornament. What's it do if I shake it?" Kalira's expression sharpened. "Do not shake it." "Right, no shaking, got it. Already making progress." He leaned back, folding his arms. "So, you've got living crystal engines that are too quiet and you want me to play space mechanic on them. Why me? You could have picked literally anyone else." The pale-haired woman grinned. "Anyone else would have said no by now." Jonas pointed at her. "She gets me, I like her." Another of the women, taller, with golden eyes that caught the light, spoke for the first time. "Our numbers are few. Every failure is the end of a line. We do not beg easily, human, but we beg you now." The word *beg* landed like a hammer. Jonas rubbed his face with both hands, groaning. Guilt trip. Works every time, fine. I'll look *. No promises. If your ship explodes, we'll just agree it was experimental performance art. Kalira inclined her head, solemn even in relief. That is all we ask. Jonas hopped off the crate, grabbing his battered toolbox. All right, pointy ears, lead the way. Let's see what kind of intergalactic nightmare you've got parked outside. They led him through the station's dim corridors, cloaks whispering against metal grates. Jonas trudged after them, toolbox clanking, tossing comments into the silence just to keep himself from thinking too hard. So, null bloom, huh? Eat stars. Sounds rough. You tried pesticides. I know a guy who swears by vinegar. No one answered. Their footsteps echoed the sound strangely solemn. Jonas muttered, tough crowd. When they reached Dock 3, Jonas forgot how to breathe. The alien vessel hovered in the cradle, dwarfing the rusting freighters around it. Its hull was not metal but translucent stone, laced with glowing veins that pulsed faintly like blood in capillaries. It looked alive, beautiful, unsettling, majestic. The ship of a people who sang to their engines instead of programming them. Jonas whistled. Well, that's not intimidating at all. Do I need a holy relic to touch it or just a screwdriver? Kalira's ears flicked. Do not mock what you do not understand. Sorry, it's my default setting. Keeps me sane. He set his toolbox down with a clang. All right, let's pop the hood and see what kind of cosmic nonsense you've got under there. Inside, the ship was worse. Corridors curved like the insides of seashells, walls pulsing faintly with bioluminescence. Jonas kept reaching out to steady himself, only to have the walls ripple away from his touch. At one point, he accidentally triggered a panel that released a sweet scent into the air. He said, coughing. Is that perfume or a death mist? The pale-haired one laughed. You asked it for assistance. It is offering comfort. Jonas gave the wall a suspicious glance. Comfort smells like lilacs. For me, comfort smells like bacon. They led him into the engine chamber. At its center sat a massive crystal structure, fractured in places, its glow faint as a dying ember. Jonas approached slowly like it might bite him. All right, he said, squatting to inspect the base. I can tell you right now this isn't in any of my repair manuals. Step 1, don't lick it. Step 2, don't sneeze on it. Step 3, pray. Kalira's brows drew together. You jest even now. Jonas looked up at her. Lady, if I don't joke, I'll panic. And if I panic, your fancy glowing rock gets a wrench through it. You want me calm. Let me keep the comedy act going. For a moment, her stern expression cracked, the corners of her mouth twitching upward. Just slightly. Jonas turned back to the engine, muttering, All right, let's see if I can talk this thing into working before your plague fungus turns the galaxy into a... The pale-haired one snorted. We noticed. By the time Jonas finished the first round of patchwork, sweat beaded his forehead and his hands were covered in glittering dust. He stepped back, flipping a small switch. All right, let's see if my improvised miracle holds, or if we all blow up and become legends. The crystal pulsed once, then again its glow strengthening, spreading through the veins in the walls. The hum deepened, resonant, steady. The entire ship seemed to exhale. The women gasped softly, their luminous eyes wide. Kalira pressed her hand to the crystal, whispering something in a language Jonas didn't understand. Jonas leaned against his toolbox, smirking. Well, what do you know? I fixed your space heart. You're welcome. No applause, please, it makes me blush. The pale-haired woman clapped once very slowly. Congratulations, human. You've prevented our immediate death, for now. Jonas wagged a finger. See, that's the kind of optimism I like. But Kalira's expression remained troubled. It will not hold forever. You bought us time, nothing more. We must move before the bloom comes. Jonas sighed. Figures. I never get to just fix something and call it a day. Always has to be cosmic doom involved. He picked up his toolbox, already dreading the next step. All right, Captain Longears, what's the plan? Kalira met his gaze, her eyes steady, resolute. The plan is survival, and for that we need you. Jonas groaned. I knew you were gonna say that. Why is it never? Thanks for the help, here's some credits, now go home and nap. The pale-haired woman smirked. Because then it wouldn't be interesting. Jonas muttered, "Yeah, well, I hate interesting." But as the ship's glow filled the chamber, alive again, he knew deep down that interesting was only just beginning. Jonas had never been fond of gambling, mostly because he always lost. Yet as he stared at the glowing crystal heart, patched together with resin, wires, and blind optimism, he realized he just placed the biggest bet of his life. If the ship held, the women lived. If it didn't, well, at least nobody would complain about his coffee machine anymore. He dragged his hand down his face. All right. Engines humming, ships breathing, and I haven't been electrocuted in the last 5 minutes. That's progress. Kalira stood nearby, her expression unreadable though her long ears twitched faintly. You did well. Jonas raised a brow. That almost sounded like a compliment. Careful, Captain. If you keep encouraging me, I might start thinking I'm useful. The pale-haired woman snorted. He already thinks that. Jonas shot her a grin. Flattery will get you everywhere. But before he could enjoy the banter, the entire chamber shuddered. The glow dimmed slightly, pulsing in uneven rhythms. Jonas froze. Did anyone else feel that, or was it just my imagination or impending stroke? Kalira's gaze snapped upward. The bloom advances. It is closer than we thought. Jonas groaned. Great. Nothing says fun like a cosmic death fungus knocking on the door. He crouched, opening the panel again. All right, ladies, time for Plan B. The golden-eyed woman tilted her head. What is Plan B? Jonas grinned sheepishly. Invent Plan B while panicking. Works every time. He dug through his toolbox, pulling out scraps of old circuitry, melted cables, and something that might have once been part of a food processor. Here's the deal. Your crystal is alive, right? Thinks, feels, hums lullabies at night. Kalira nodded. It responds to harmony, to resonance. Perfect, Jonas said, holding up a scorched amplifier from a human freighter. Because I happen to own the ugliest amplifier in the galaxy, and I'm not afraid to use it. If I can sync this with your crystal, maybe we can boost the resonance, stabilize the cracks, and keep your heart beating long enough to outrun the bloom. The pale-haired one raised a brow. Or maybe you make it scream and explode. Jonas winked. Hey, every great invention starts with maybe it'll explode. Hours passed as he worked, welding together human tech and alien crystal with reckless determination. Sparks flew, circuits hissed, and the ship occasionally groaned like it was offended by his methods. Jonas kept up a steady stream of chatter, partly to distract the women, partly to keep himself sane. Don't worry, I'm a professional, he said as something sparked dangerously close to his face. Professional at making messes, sure, but still counts. At one point, he tried to mount the amplifier onto the crystal housing and promptly dropped it on his foot. His yelp echoed through the chamber, followed by the pale-haired woman's laughter. Graceful, she said. Jonas hopped on one leg, grimacing. Yeah, well, don't tell anyone, but I moonlight as a ballerina. Despite the tension, a ripple of amusement spread among them. Even Kalira's stern mouth twitched, though she quickly looked away. Finally, Jonas connected the last wire, stepping back with a flourish. All right, I present to you. The Frankenheart. Half crystal, half scrap, all miracle. Let's hope it doesn't blow us into the next dimension. He flipped the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the crystal blazed with light, veins of energy surging through the walls like rivers of fire. The hum deepened, rich and steady, filling the chamber until Jonas's chest vibrated. The entire ship pulsed with renewed strength, alive in a way it hadn't been before. The women gasped, eyes wide. Kalira pressed her hand to the crystal, her face softening with wonder. It sings again. Jonas grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. Told you, nothing duct tape and blind faith can't fix. But his relief was short-lived. The floor trembled not from the ship but from beyond. Warning lights flared, casting the chamber in crimson. The bloom, Kalira whispered. It is here. Jonas swore under his breath. Of course it is. Couldn't give us one victory without immediate doom, huh? He grabbed his toolbox. All right, strap in, folks. Time to see if my Frankenheart can outrun a star-eating fungus. They rushed through the glowing corridors, the ship responding to their urgency. Jonas trailed behind, muttering, "Why do I always get dragged into galactic extinction events? I'm supposed to be fixing vending machines, not saving civilizations." The women strapped into seats near the command console, their hands moving over living controls that pulsed like veins. Jonas plopped into an empty chair, clutching his toolbox like a life raft. Kalira's voice rang clear. "Engage the jump." The ship shuddered, engines roaring with unnatural harmony, the crystal heart blazing. Outside, through the viewport, the stars dimmed, light itself draining as a wave of darkness spread like ink in water. Jonas's stomach twisted. Quick question," he said, gripping the armrests. "If this fails, do we explode instantly or get slowly consumed by space mold?" The pale-haired one grinned. "Does it matter?" Jonas groaned. "Yes, it matters, 1 Hz less." The ship lurched forward, engines screaming. Light bled from the stars as the bloom devoured them, chasing fast. Jonas shut his eyes, muttering, "Please don't explode, please don't explode, please don't explode." And then, with a thunderous surge, the ship tore through the void, leaving the dying system behind in a blaze of light. The jump spat them out into silence. No alarms, no shaking hull, no red warning screaming doom in Jonas's face. Just silence and stars. Bright, untarnished stars, glittering across the black like a billion candles that hadn't yet been snuffed out. Jonas exhaled so hard it came out as a laugh. "Well, we're not dead. I'd call that a solid B+ performance." The pale-haired woman unclipped her harness, smirking. "B+. You rewired our ship with junk and blind luck. That was, at best, a C-." Jonas raised a finger. "Hey, if you're alive, it's an A. I don't make the rules." Kalira stayed quiet for a moment, her gaze fixed on the viewport. The lines of tension in her face eased, just barely. "We escaped," she said softly, like she didn't quite believe it. Jonas leaned back in his chair, toolbox on his lap. "Escaped is good. Survived is better. Celebrated with drinks is best. Though I'm warning you, my station only stocks something called fermented algae surprise. And trust me, the surprise part is not pleasant." The women exchanged faint smiles, weary but genuine. For the first time, the weight in the room lifted, like the universe had granted them a tiny pause from disaster. But the pause didn't last. The golden-eyed woman turned, her expression serious. "The bloom will follow. It always follows. This is only the beginning." Jonas groaned, covering